Yeah, today I show you my scanning setup for negatives and tintypes with my Leica M11. For that I asked K&F Concept to send me over some adapters. This is an 8mm extension ring for my Leica M11. I really like that it comes in these little boxes and it's well protected. And they are also very well built. And now this is a 10mm extension ring for my Leica M11. So it's just an adapter from Leica M to Leica M. I will use these to photograph my tintypes. The next adapter is from Leica M to Canon EF, so I can digitize my negatives with my Canon 100mm macro lens. I'll show you in a minute. Again, these are very well built, I'm really happy with them. The last adapter is from Leica M to M42. I will use it for future projects for some very interesting lenses, so subscribe if you want to see them. Let's start with the Canon lens. Before you use the Leica M to Canon EF adapter, you have to set the aperture on your Canon EF lens you want to use. I'll do that on my Canon 5D Mark IV. So I set it to f11 for example, and then you hold the depth of field preview button, so you see the aperture closes if you press this button here. So you hold the button, again you see it changes, and now when you hold the button and you unscrew the lens with this button, you have to do it at the same time, it will stay on f11. So be careful, turn off your camera, and you see the aperture is still closed and we have here still f11. Now we can mount it on the Leica M. First I put the Leica M to Canon EF adapter on my Leica M11. It clicks very nice in place. And now I can mount my Canon EF 100mm macro lens on the Leica M11. It fits perfectly. Some time ago I bought this mount ring for my Canon EF 100mm macro lens, and this comes in now very handy. You will see later on my scanning setup. This looks like a beast. The small camera with this big lens, crazy. As always, everything I use here for the project I will link down below. And this is my scanning setup with a very messy desktop in the background. But let's start anyway. More about the Valoi 360 and the level in a second. As basic setup, I use a very affordable desktop mount for laptops and monitors. It's 800mm tall, so I'm very flexible for all different kinds of negatives. And on the desktop stand is a Manfrotto Superclamp. On the Superclamp I put a ball head from GorillaBot, and on the ball head is the mount ring for the Canon lens. Here you can see the Valoi 360 scanning unit with the hood. The hood was printed by myself. You can buy the designs and print them by themselves. I thought this was very handy. I printed it for the 35mm and for the medium format. And I really think they are very helpful if you want to scan during daylight and don't want to darken up your room, so you avoid any reflections on your negatives. This is the Valoi 360 Advancer, so you can advance the film with these rolls here. And as light source underneath here you can see the CinestStill CS-Lite. To save some money I printed the housing for the CinestStill by myself. As I saved also some money for this stand instead of buying the stand from Valoi 360 or from Novoflex, how they suggest. The CinestStill 360 has some different color modes for different films. This was also something I really liked. A lot of people suggest to use a mirror to level the camera with the negatives, but I use a level. Let me show you. So I put the level on the screen of the camera because I think it's gonna be level with the sensor. And then I do the same thing on the Valoi 360. It looks also really good, you see. And now I can scan my negatives. I shoot my Leica M11 tethered to Lightroom. But Lightroom so far does not have any support for live view on the Leica M11. So I use my iPad with the Leica app to see a live view. And now the laptop holder comes in pretty handy, that came with my setup. I press the magnifier button on my Leica M11 so I can focus on the negative. And with this big screen of the iPad this gets very easy, and it's nice to see it live when I'm standing in front of the negative. And you can See if it's sharp in the corners and everywhere else. I use a 2-second timer and electronic shutter to avoid any camera shake when I capture the negative. So the first result looks pretty good. You can see the grain. So I think this is a success. Let's convert the negative with Negative Labs Pro. And that's my first time using this tool, so I guess I need a little bit more time to get used to it. So I'm pretty happy with the scan. This is a 60 megapixel image from the Leica M11. It's really sharp. You can see the grain even down to the corners if you enlarge it. So I also like this image a lot. So if you want to see more about my street photography, just visit my Full Photography Circle Instagram page to see all my street photography. I really like the Valoi 360 Advancer, but sometimes you will see in a second it doesn't advance my negatives. So because they are too curved or something like that, so I have to help them a little bit with my hands. But maybe I'm doing something wrong. So I tried the different rings that came with it, the red ones and the black ones, but sometimes I really have to use my hands to advance them. And better use gloves, right? Now I change the setup to medium format. For that I have to adjust the Manfrotto Superclamp and refocus the camera. Of course I have to have a look at the level also again. The nice thing about these negatives is that I scanned them already on the CinestStill negative scanner. It's a big flatbed scanner and one of the best scanners on the planet, I guess. I scanned them wet as well. You don't see it here, but you get an idea what the scanner looks like. I have done a very long extensive video about the scanner as well. I'll link it up in the corner and down below. What I learned from my lab is that this dust blower, this electronic dust blower, it comes in very handy if you want to clean negatives. I also use it for my tintypes before I varnish them or before I scan them. It's much more easy than using the rocket blower, for example. This was my first try with this scanning setup, and as you can see, they're coming into Lightroom pretty quickly, and also did a lot of different medium format scans. As said, a lot of them I did before with my CinestStill scanner, and now it's time to compare them. I was not very satisfied about the Portra 800 colors from the Negative Labs Pro. I like the colors of the CinestStill much more on the left side. But I think that's a topic for another video, for another test. I guess I have to change maybe the color of the CinestStill-Lite or something like that. But let's start to compare the resolution. You can see the CinestStill scanner just kills it. You can see the grain of the Portra 800 medium format film. It's much sharper. And I didn't even scan the negative in the maximum resolution because it didn't make sense anymore. But on the other hand, for a quick scan, the Leica M11 does really well in combination with the Canon 100mm macro lens. Especially when you think how fast I can scan with the Leica M11 compared to the CinestStill scanner. With the flatbed scanner, I need at least 20 minutes to half an hour to scan one negative. By the way, this portrait of Alexandra and Keenan I did in New York, and if you want to see more portraits, follow my Instagram channel. I will post them there from time to time. I played here a little bit more with sharpness, but as you can see, both are really sharp. And let's go to the next negative. This is Elias. I met him on the University Avenue in Seattle and spent about 2 days with him on the street. We had a lot of interesting conversations. He's a big fan of Sitting Bull. He always has a black and white portrait of the Sitting Bull with him. That's the reason I did a black and white portrait of him. Later, I sent him the portrait from Austria back to Seattle and a friend handed it over. So if you want to read the full story, I will link it down in the description. This is an Ilford Delta 400 film. So let's compare the resolution of a black and white film. You can see again that the CinestStill kills the 60 megapixel image of the Leica by a mile. But I didn't sharpen anything on the Leica yet. So I will do that in a later step. I just want to show you the out of the camera comparison against the CinestStill scanner, but I still think it's really good for negative scan with a digital camera. So let's sharpen it a little bit. Now I sharpened the Leica image a little bit and added also a little bit of texture, so you see a little bit more grain. Maybe it's a little bit too much. I just want to try the comparison again. And I still think for a very quick scan, it looks really nice. As said before, you can see a lot of detail, and the Ilford Delta 400 film in combination with my Mamiya 6x5 camera and a 80mm lens reveals a lot of detail as well. So this is a very fine grain film. So guys, what do you think? Is it worth to take the additional time for the scanner, or are you happy with the Leica scans? Now I put on the 8mm extension for the Leica lens, so I can use the 90mm 2.8 Elmarit lens as a macro lens. Again, I'm very satisfied with the adapter. I saw it before in a local shop, and because I have a nice contact to KNF Concept already, I just asked them, and I didn't pay anything for that. I forgot to say it before, but it's less than a review, more than a help to see what I can do with it. So what I want to show you here today is not like an high-end setup I would use for scanning tintypes, because I would use anyways at home always my screen Cezanne scanner, but it's gonna be a mobile setup. If I'm gonna be on-site shooting somewhere and I don't have a scanner with me, I wanna just use what I have with me, and this is my 6000 watt Hansel Trier 6000 generator and strobe head. Probably mostly I have like a dark cloth there, I have like a drying rack and my Hansel Grained 85 Mini reflector that's always with me. So let's see what I can get out of it. You ask yourself probably why I don't use the Canon macro lens for it, because it's really huge and I want to travel light all the time. So I just use my 90mm Elmarit lens I have, and you will see how sharp it is in a second. I set the lens to f11 and use the base ISO of 64 and set the exposure time for strobes. And again, I use the Leica Focus Assist to focus on the grain of the tintype. Even there is not much grain on a tintype, but I guess you know what I mean. And here again the full setup, the tintype. I focused on it already. I have a 2-second timer. I release the shutter and the big pop goes up. I review the image again on the screen. I'll zoom in again to see if everything is sharp, and then I'm ready to go back to Lightroom and compare them with the Screen Cezanne scan. Very similar to the negative scans, the Screen Cezanne scan is about 160 megapixels on the left and 60 megapixels from the Leica on the right. And I still think the Leica M11 has a lot of resolution. It looks really great for an on-site scan. So I'm really quick with the scan, so to say, to make a backup of a tintypes, if you want to call it like that. Let's go to the borders where there's a lot of detail. And here you can see that the Screen Cezanne is much better. There's much more resolution in there. To give you a better idea what the Screen Cezanne scanner is capable of, here you see an image that's like about 600 megapixels. And this is an image with about 1 gigapixel. These portraits are part of my Inspired series. There's a whole playlist with portraits about this series. You can get informed about my book. I will show you the link to the book right here. And of course, these portraits will always be shown on my main Instagram page. It's called MH Austria. Look at this detail. It's amazing what this scanner can do. Thanks for watching until here, and thanks again to my Patreons for your support. And as always, I'll be back, guys.